how did you find your characters? So these people, not only Naoki, but also the other people that we saw in the film.
Yeah, so the idea for the film came from the producers, Jeremy and Stevie, whose son Joss you see in the film, and you see Jeremy and Stevie, and they'd read the book, and it had sort of transformed their way of understanding their son, I think. But when I went to talk to Naoki about doing, so I got involved because my producer Al Morrow was working with them, and when I first went to visit Naoki, he was very excited by the project, but he said that I don't want to be in the film. That was a very clear kind of red line for him. I think he just is someone who wants to, like many writers, he's rather his words speak for himself than be filmed. So that's changed really the film that was in my head and made me think much more about how could we use the words in the book to kind of immerse ourselves in the lives of other non-speaking autistic people without them just becoming like examples of things in the book, but to have their own sort of life in the film. And there's a sort of shape to the book really, which begins by kind of talking about the intensity of sensory experience and then kind of ends really with Naoki coming to sort of celebrate his autism in a way. So I felt that, when I found Amrit, who was an artist, that felt a really good way into taking an audience into a different way of seeing, into another way of seeing the world, a world of sort of detail. And that then Joss, who was the producer's son, I had the opportunity to film quite a lot with him and got to know him well. So it felt that in a way you could go into the more difficult areas of how that overload is very hard, especially during adolescence. But then I was also looking for maybe two older people who would be more political, more advocates, and perhaps who used the same writing method as Naoki, the letterboard. And I found Ben and Emma just through sort of web research in the States. And then finally, Justina, I'd been shooting in Sierra Leone on another project, and I was interested in how did autism play out in that country, and that's how I found Mary and Justina.
Yeah, I found that this is a film about the communication, and this is really a big issue, especially now where we also have to communicate like this, so not like face to face, and there are a lot of limitations to this, and so I mean, how did you communicate with your characters? And also, I read that you have some input from British Autistic Society, so from the people from the community. Maybe you could just say something on this.
Yeah, I mean, just to that first point, yeah, it's interesting. I think the film does play slightly differently because we've all been isolated for so long. I think it has a different kind of resonance for an audience. But yeah, I mean, I was really concerned that autistic people should have a big say in the way the film represented autism, and to make sure that I wasn't kind of going for the very stereotypical neurotypical ideas about autism. And so we had an advisory group that would watch the film at certain times and give us feedback, and that was really helpful. I also kind of read a lot of the work. Increasingly there's a whole set of books by non-speaking autistic people, some of it marvelous writing, and a lot of it hits very similar, talks about very similar experiences to the experiences that Naoki talks about in the book. So that was kind of my sort of grounding in learning about this, I guess. So what was the second part of your question? Sorry.
No, I was just wondering how did you communicate with them?
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Did a film, or how was it?
Yeah. So I mean, so we didn't direct anything really. Our sort of policy was just to try and get to a place where we could just be in the space with people. Obviously, with say Justina and Emma, with Emma and Ben. And with Amrit, we were able to have a much more sort of conscious dialogue about the film. Whereas with, say, Justina and Joss, that was much more about just sensing, when they wanted to stop us filming, when they were happy with us filming. showing them bits to try and give them a sense of what it was that we were making. So yeah, so the communication was this kind of long process. You know, I suppose like consent is always difficult in documentaries or complex, and in this documentary more so than any other, really. You know, it's not about someone signing a release form, it's about a long process of sort of being with the person, sensing their agreement or their disagreement with what you're doing.
Yeah, and there is another thing that really struck me, and that's the audiovisual language, like the film language that you're using. I mean, that you found the way to convey these feelings and these emotions and this kind of a perception into a film, and also these wonderful locations. I was really like struck by it. So how did you find this kind of a film language for the things that you wanted to show and they wanted to say? Or
so I think when right at the beginning we probably was thinking about, you know, oh, how would we use visual effects and things like that, but as the film production progressed, I think what we felt was we didn't want to impose an imagery on people's experience, but to try and get that imagery out of the way we filmed their environments. So most of those, you know, we would be, for example, with Amrit, and in Amrit's house, there are, you know, these fans that are going all the time and making a noise, and we then sort of tried to just explore with the intensity of those, the potential intensity of them. And we decided to record 360-degree sound in every location. So we were running like 16 tracks of audio for everything we were filming, and have mastered the film in 360. Unfortunately, until it's in a cinema, you will never really fully experience that. But to try and just be able to direct people's attention to a sound that perhaps, you know, neurotypically we would think of the sounds that are sort of central to a scene, but then, you know, to try and realize that another sound that's over there might be really distracting or capture your attention. So yeah, so really it was about trying to shoot within people's environments, but maybe shoot with a lot of macro lenses, explore the detail of things much more, which were ideas that we got from Naoki's book. You know, he talks a lot about that visual experience of being immersed in detail. And then we felt that we needed this somewhere that we would place most of the book that wasn't our characters, so that our characters didn't have to become examples of the book, which we felt was the wrong way to go. So luckily we found Jim, who was a young non-speaking autistic Japanese boy in England, and kind of worked with him just in a number of sort of twilight environments. And I think we think of him, I suppose, maybe as the young Naoki, maybe as like the spirit of the book, you know, maybe as David Mitchell, the translator's son in some way. You know, it's a way in which I think we project different ideas onto him, and it's ambiguous, and that's okay for me.
Yeah, so I really want to thank you in the name of our audience for this beautiful film, and we hope you'll give us a lot more of really great films. I mean, your filmography is fantastic, and you do a lot of socially engaged stuff. So yeah, keep working, and thank you so much. And please say also, if it's possible somehow, to your characters that it's really marvelous film, and I think that we all learned a lot from it.
Absolutely, yeah, thank you. Yeah, they're all following the passage of the film as it goes out into the world, so it's very exciting. And thank you very much for watching and for showing it at the festival.